I'll mute the mic.
Hey, is the mic on? Hey, can you hear me up in the balcony up there? Let's get the show going. I am proud and honored to have once again my good friend Mike Williams on my show, which, by the way, is not sponsored by Pfizer. We're celebrating his 64th birthday today, January 6th. He is by far one of the best researchers I have listened to on so many topics, and he never leaves a stone uncovered when he chooses one to look at. He has become the go-to guy for everything Fab 4, and since 64 is always connected to them, let's hear it now, just a snippet.
Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
Ooh, did you like that, folks? If you have not noticed, the number 6 is used a lot out there. Agenda 19, 6 feet apart, and we are buried 6 feet under.
Oh boy.
6 feet apart, or 6 feet under. They've loved that number. They sure do. Hey, right from the start. Their okay sign is really 666, folks. We should all know that by now. Today, January 6th, our Veep Camel Toe Harris has compared this day to Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, and 9/11, 2001, which was the project for a new American century's new Pearl Harbor, when in both cases the actual events are not at all what they have been reported to be to the masses. So January 6th is much like them in that the truth about all of them has never been given. So today, let's discuss with Mike where all the lies are taking us to now, and hope people will see it all before we're at their New World Order communism. And did I mention already, this show is not brought to you by Pfizer or anything else that is not good for you. What we're going to do, though, is play music, Mike's music. And today's all about Mike. Be like Mike, okay, folks? Research. Let's go. Let's start the show, Sasha. Get it going.
Happy birthday, a great big to-do. Let's celebrate, yeah, celebrate you. So make a wish on your special day. You're looking great, so great, come celebrate.
Hey there, Mr. Shears. I see you wrote a book. I heard about the rumors, so I had to take a look. Going back to yesterday, I see a different guy. And you may say there is no way, but I see through the lie. Billy Pepper, Billy Pepper. You said hello when the first guy waved goodbye. You went
Getting a lot of happy birthdays for you, Mike. Coming in on the chat.
Then you kissed the sky.
I may join on the chorus if you don't mind.
Little touch of magic sprinkled in the air. A little touch of plastic and a new head of hair. Billy Pepper,
Billy Pepper,
Billy Pepper.
Billy Pepper. That's George Pepper on lead there, or Mike Pepper. All these peppers everywhere, right?
Billy Pepper.
but no one sees it's you. Sometimes you have 6 toes, but who knows if that's true. Billy Pepper, Billy Pepper. Hey there, Mr. Shears, I see you wrote a book. I heard about the rumors, so
Mike,
I
do you have your
had
YouTube
to
up? Can you see the
take a
slideshow?
look. Going
he's not
back
singing
to yesterday, I see a different guy. And you may say there is no way, but I see through the lie. Billy Pepper, Billy Pepper, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thanks for all the happy birthdays coming in already.
Come on down. Billy Pepper, Billy Pepper, yeah, yeah, yeah. Billy Pepper, Billy Pepper, we're him on.
Hey, everybody coming on. Mike, happy birthday to you. It's a big one in Beatle history, so happy birthday to you, buddy.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Sasha, for having me back on the show.
Well, you're always welcome, and I think this is our 6th time together, so the number 6 keeps coming up all the time, man. We had a little delay here. We had a little problem here, but we're glad to have it on now. And first time we did a show, we talked over 2 hours, and it felt like about a half hour. So I thought the best place to start, since we started with your Billy Pepper song, is the memoirs for Billy Shears books that are out. And they were we had them on the slideshow, and a lot of PID researchers don't even read those books. And give us a little update to people that don't know about the books. First off, the first one was a red book that came out in 999, and that was also the day the Beatles songs showed up on iTunes. Coincidence? I don't think so. And the second book came out in 9918, so the number 9 is big in both John and Paul's history. And the memoirs is all encoded. So tell the listeners today a little bit about all these 3 books, and Billy's back as well.
Yeah, so like you said, John, the Red Book came out September 9, 2009, and that was also the same day that I believe the Beatles Rock Band was released.
With iTunes,
also,
too. And
yep,
iTunes.
and also it was also the same date that the Beatles machine, the Enterprise, released the Past Masters on CD. So it's a date that is used a lot in the Beatles circle, and so it has a lot of importance. So the first book released September 9, 2009, and then the book was updated, I believe, with a major update in 2018. So it was released on September 9th, 2018, so we have 999 again. We take the 2 last digits of the year, 2018. 18, 1 plus 8 is 9. And since then, I think there's been about maybe 2 or 3 other updates. The most significant update that took place back in 2021, I think it was 2018, was the footnotes. Tom added the footnotes to the book. The original version,
Okay.
first edition, didn't have footnotes. So when Tom added the footnotes, it filled in a lot of blanks, and the footnotes also were able to deviate from the narrative. So it gave a lot more information and clarity historically as to what went on and what was going on. So we're now at the point where Tom released the 2022 version in November of this past year, and he mentioned to me that another update, I don't think it's going to be a major update, it might be uploaded to Amazon as we speak. So over time, what's happened is the footnotes have gotten a lot more direct, I should say. There's not a lot of ambiguity, and so it fills in a lot of the gaps that people were asking questions about in the past, especially if you went back to the 2009 book. And I mentioned to you before we got started here that Tom had mentioned to me that there's a possibility that this year, 2023, that they're looking to make the book go more mainstream. So right now it's kind of underground, and it's got a very small, if you will, following, but it sounds like what they're looking to do is to step it up. And I'm going to make an assumption that that means that it might go to a major publisher in order to do that. So the book is getting more and more traction, and especially when I think it was last year, or maybe it was the year before. Sometimes I just lose track of time, but Tom had put the website, The Memoirs of Paul, and on that site, both Billy's The Lyrics, 1956 to present, and The Memoirs of Billy Shears were co-marketed together.
Right, which is something that I think is huge. And by the way, when you mentioned Tom, mention his last name, Thomas E.U. Harriet. He's the guy who does the encoding for Billy in all the books that he does. And you have sometimes firsthand accounts with him in emails periodically, which is really another thing that gives you more credibility.
Yeah. So Tom and I have established a relationship. It's a professional relationship, friendship over the last 6 years. And it's something that just grew naturally because he had this book published. He is the author/encoder, and I'll get into the encoding bit in a moment. And I was this guy that used the book. When I first read it back in 2016, it blew me away. And then I set off to do research to find out if what was said in the book was truthful. And so since then, it's been over 6 years now. I've been doing the research and then publishing my research on my YouTube channel. And over the course of time, Tom and I have conversed here and there. Mostly it has to do with me communicating with him, asking him certain questions that I might have. But also, when I spoke about the website, The Memoirs of Paul, co-marketing both books, in I believe it was the 2021 version of Memoirs, there's a plug for the lyrics in the Memoirs of Billy Shears in the very beginning of the book. So what we see happening is the two worlds. There is the official narrative, and then we have the real narrative, or the more realistic narrative. They're coming together now. So this is all part of Billy's process of trying to disclose.
Well, and all the work that you've done, too, one of the biggest, more popular or unpopular one was, did the Beatles write their own music? And that one is amazing because when you did it, you found that Rubber Soul was the smoking gun, where they wouldn't have had time to write the songs for that great album. They would have time to sing it, but that's it. And people really need to go to your Sage of Quay if they don't know your work and watch that and start to get off the Beatle religion, which is what it really is. And it was all Tavistock created. It wasn't organic. The band just didn't come together. And that's what you've shown me more than anything, because my nickname in college was Lennon, so you knew, as we all were influenced by them more than anybody. But now I say we're all Tavistock influenced songwriters at the end of the day. But anyway, now you wanted to go into the encoding of the book, which a lot of PID people who don't research this don't have any idea of because they've never read it.
Yeah, that's a problem that runs across a lot of these communities, these Paul is Dead communities, where people consider themselves to be Paul is Dead researchers or investigators, and they go off and say, well, the book is fiction. And the first question you have to ask these folks is, have you read the book? And the vast majority of them have not. Or if they have read it, they read it just to say that they did, but they had no intentions of altering their view of their own research because they have their dogma. They are just cemented in their dogma and they won't move off of it. So what they do instead, like I said, most of them have not read the book. And so folks who are listening, if you see any of those types of comments out there, that's the response. Have you read the book? Because this would be like you're looking to buy a car, and somebody writes a review for a car that never test drove it, never sat in the car.
Right.
Would you buy a car from somebody who wrote a review that never tested the car? You would not. So this is what we have in the Paul is Dead community as well. So they don't understand the encoding. They don't. Many of these other researchers, they just want to embrace that Cinderella story. The basic premise goes like this: the Beatles were organic. They reached all that fame and fortune based upon all of this talent. They were magical. They had chemistry and so on. And then they were commandeered by the evil Billy Shears. It's almost like Star Wars. Darth Vader stepped in.
Right.
And what they don't understand is that the whole Beatles thing was a massive psychological operation. It was a massive social engineering initiative, as is all music.
As is all the things we're told. Look at after 9/11 2001, I was a 9/11 truther, and I was a lonely guy. But take what you just said. Have you read the book? I would tell people, have you researched 9/11? And they haven't. They haven't. If you're taking all the things that we are told from the TV, mainstream news, the government. By the way, people, if you don't know this, the government, entertainment, sports, this is all one club. This is how the only actor we ever heard was for sure an actor was Ronald Reagan, but guess what? They're all actors. The Beatles are actors. And that's what we got to understand if we want to understand what's going on with this Agenda 19. It's all part of creating $1 trillion deficit worldwide and one world order is what it is. And the Beatles are a big part of it because think about it. If you see all these lately and since the Get Back movie came out, have you seen all the famous people and so many videos saying the Beatles were their biggest influence, no matter what, even in comics, Dana Carvey, all these people. Oh, the Beatles were the ones we loved the most. And that's the religion that they made.
Yes. Yeah, it's a cult. It's a cult. And when I released Did the Beatles Write All Their Own Music back in April of 2020, it turned not only the Beatle fan base community on its head, but also many in the Paul is Dead community. Because as I mentioned before, many of these folks that are doing the Paul is Dead or the Beatles research, they only wanted to start from 1966 forward. They did not want to take a look at the early period, let's say from 1960 through 1966. So so it was one of those pieces of research that you do. I knew that when I was going to release it, that it was going to catch a lot of flack, and there was going to be a lot of hate coming my way. But you know what? It's okay, because the truth is the truth, John. And you can't step back from the truth. You have to put it out there, and you just have to put your shields up, get your flak jacket on, and step out into the battlefield, because that's just the way it is. People are very comfortable with the lies. They're really comfortable with it. They like the lies because the lies make them feel good. But you're living in a virtual reality. It's not how the reality truly is. And we're never going to get out from under all this unless more and more people wake up and step up to the plate and seek and pursue the truth, So as far as the encoding in the book, let me just cover that real quick, because that was your initial question. There's really 3 layers of encoding in the book, and there's actually a 4th, and I'll explain that in a moment. The first layer is you just read the book face value, right? You don't do anything else other than just read the words of the page. The second layer, Tom, who has skills in encoding, and just as a side note, a number of years ago, maybe it was 2 or 3 years ago, I asked Tom about how he learned to encode, and he said to me that it was something that he was taught when he was younger, but he had no idea why. So this is very consistent with how secret societies and Freemasonry works. People are taught certain skills, And at the time, they may not know why that skill is being taught to them. And then later on, they get tapped for a piece of work. And that's what happened to Tom. So the second layer is what's referred to as word stacking. So on every page of the book, and the book has 666 pages, there are bolded out letters. So when you read the bolded out letters, now you're getting another sentence or two. So now it's a deeper dive into the book. And then the third layer is called the acrostical code. So the acrostical code would be every other letter at the beginning of each sentence. When you read the code vertically, it's now giving you more information. You're getting more sentences and more information about Billy, about the Beatles, and you're getting closer to the truth. The fourth layer is a layer that where the book is inviting you to go out and research beyond the book. So the book is throwing information out. It's putting information out on the table, and it's saying to you, do you want to know more about this? Because if you do, you should research this. That's how I ended up looking into the music. There was a passage on page 350 or 351 in one of the earlier editions of the book, and they talked about how George Martin was going to take their little songs and make them great. And then the next page talked about the Snitch and the Committee of 300. So I knew that John Coleman wrote the book, The Committee of 300. And it's all about, this is a great book, folks. I highly recommend reading it. I think it was published back in the mid-1980s, around 35 years ago, and almost 40 years. And it's unbelievable what John Coleman has in that book. And the first thing you're going to say to yourself is, if this is what was going on 40 years ago, where are they today, 40 years later? Okay, that's just a side note. So Memoirs is asking you openly to go research outside the book. And, when some folks step up and say, oh, the book is fiction and this and that, the book is categorized as historical fiction. And the reason for that is because Billy and Tom and others, whoever is involved in the book, are bound by contract. They have signed non-disclosure agreements, secrecy agreements, and they have to keep within the boundaries of those agreements. And the way the fiction is set up in the book, it's based upon what the reader does not want to believe. Think about that. Think about how brilliant that is. So as an example, if I say that Aleister Crowley played a major role, his influence, his ideology, his philosophy, his spirituality, thelema, with the Beatles entity, and somebody doesn't believe Aleister Crowley had that type of influence, then they might deem that part of the book as fiction. In other words, Crowley was not that significant a figure, so therefore that part of the book is fiction. If you don't want to believe that Billy played the role of Vivian Stanshall in the Bonzo Dog Band with Neil Innes, if you think that's a bunch of nonsense, then you're going to call that fiction. So this is what the book does. It pulls in all of these different points, and then the reader is making a decision based upon what it is they want to believe and not want to believe, what's fiction and what's not. The objective of the book is to not just shoot things out of the sky out of the start. You have to read it, you have to just sit with it, and then start doing the research to find out if what you're being told is truthful or not. And what I have told folks is the book is truthful. Are there threads of fiction in the book? Yes, there are threads of fiction in the book. Somebody might ask, well, what is one of those threads? In the book, in the main narrative, which is Billy speaking through Tom, Billy still talks as if John Lennon and Paul McCartney were these prolific songwriters. So Billy doesn't back off of that narrative. He drops hints, like I said, I mentioned before, as to how I got into looking into the music, but overall, he pretty much sticks to that narrative. It wasn't until after I released my big presentation about them not writing all their own music, especially between the periods of 1962 through 1966, the early period. From 67 on, the Beatles, specifically Lennon and George Harrison, wrote more of their own material and played more on the recorded tracks, but the Beatles were still using ghostwriters and studio musicians during the 67 through 70 period. But my position is, from 1962 through 1966, I don't believe the Beatles wrote anything. And I don't believe they played on any of the recorded tracks. It was the Wrecking Crew model that was used.
Well, and again, George Martin hinted at it. They brought 100 songs to him, and the only one was "Love Me Do," as he thought was halfway decent. But was any of them? They were supposedly writing 100 songs, but there's no reference to that. I remember Pete Best, when he was on Howard Stern's show, as an example, he asked, "Did you see him write any songs?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I think P.S. I Love You." You know, Pete Best obviously was just kind of making it up, and "Love Me Do." That's the only songs you saw. He was with them 8 hours a day playing and all that stuff. You know, that's the thing when you see these interviews, they'll say something like that, and you'll say, "Well, that doesn't make any sense. You would have seen him write more than that." So, you know, that their own words tell you what's going on. And even John Lennon, in so many of his of interviews, he said, "Hey, we were a myth," because he's trying to tell you, "Hey, we didn't do this, man." You know, in the Rolling Stone interview.
Lennon, in his interview, in the Rolling Stone interview, said the Beatles were a myth, McCartney was a myth, Dylan was a myth.
Yeah.
And I mean, so that's what I did, John, too. When I did the presentation, I still do it to this day. I use their words.
Right.
And it's there in plain sight. You just have to read between the lines, and you have to be astute enough to connect the dots and say, okay, well, they're not really saying they did this. They're alluding to maybe they did it, but they're not saying that they did. And, and just to go back to your point about the 100 songs, they didn't bring 100 songs to George Martin. There was a documentary going back to the 1980s called The Complete Beatles, and that was considered the Beatles documentary at the time until Anthology came out. And in that documentary, in The Complete Beatles, it states that the Beatles, well, John Lennon and Paul McCartney specifically, wrote 100 songs between them from 1956 to 1962. And yet when they went to Decca to do the demo on January 1st of 62, they were only able to muster up 3 original songs, which were nondescript. And, of course, we have the Mercy Beat article from September of 1962, where it's letting everybody know that Ringo Starr replaced Pete Best. But in that article, it mentions that the Beatles were flying to London to record at EMI to play songs that were written for them. Right. And given to them by their recording manager, producer, George Martin. And, so I did a whole piece, too, on the whole 1960 through 1963 period. And if we take a look at what was going on under the hood, they were an engineered band.
And most of the time when they played live, they always played cover tunes. Most of the time, even when they were playing live, they'd always have 3 or 4 or 5 like Dizzy Miss Lizzie. They Roll Over Beethoven. I'm like, they have all these great songs, but they weren't playing them live during that point. Just a few of them. And when they did, I maintain that all the screaming was what they wanted to scream, and so people couldn't really hear them that well for a reason, because they really weren't the best musicians out there anyway. So, and the 2 words that come to mind when you're talking about this is the CIA's favorite 2 words: plausible deniability. That's what always, and that's what all these people in this club, entertainment, politics, they have the same Beatle MO. Plausible deniability. That's what Billy's doing here with his book. It's, I'm not going to say it happened, but hey, I'm going to give you a story here. And that's what you find in any truth movement that you go into, and you try to do your own research. You find plausible deniability everywhere. Other people at the top of the chain giving you the story. You know, they don't want to admit anything that you say, well, this looks like this wasn't the way. I don't think hijackers could have flown the planes. Why? Because they didn't know how to fly. Really, you learn in a.
Right.
It's the same thing. The Beatles weren't really playing that good, but hey, they're out there live, but we couldn't hear them that well because that was a crowd noise. But you know, and the Wrecking Crew, we know that there was a guy. I think his last name was Martin. Graydon Martin, Nashville, was like the guitar player for all the Nashville songs.
Yeah.
And the guy was, I just saw about him the other day, the guy could play like nobody. And I was watching some of his videos, but we never hear about the background people. We never do. So it had to be with them too. The songs were too slick together for them when you compare them playing the live thing.
The Beatles were taught songs to take out on the road, to take out live. They were the veneer.
Right.
And and what was happening behind the scenes is George Martin, the songs were written. I believe Theodore Adorno was involved along with George Martin. I don't subscribe to Theodore Adorno writing all of the Beatles music. You'll hear some people say that. I don't believe that to be true. Adorno was very involved.
And he was in Tavistock, right?
Tavistock, yeah. That's a great book, Daniel Esterlin's book. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the songs were all written, and studio players were called in to lay down the instrumental tracks. And so I have said it's highly likely that Vic Flick was one of the studio players on a lot of the Beatles songs. Big Jim Sullivan, who was a very in-demand studio guitarist back in the day.
And the drummer that said he played on 21 tracks, they said Ringo.
Bernard Purdy.
Ringo didn't play hardly on any of them, if at all.
No. So what Bernard Purdy had said, that there were 4 drummers on the Beatles tracks, and I believe Bernard was talking about the period between 62 and 66, and he said Ringo was not one of them. So those 3 drummers were Andy White, who the mainstream narrative, the official Beatles narrative, tells us that George Martin hired Andy White to do P.S. I Love You and to drum on Love Me Do. But I believe that Andy White was hired to do a lot more than just 2 songs. Bernard Purdy, who has been saying since the 1970s that he drummed on 21 Beatles songs. Ronnie Verrill, the great British session drummer, jazz drummer, also drummed on Beatles songs. And how do I know this? Because a family member contacted me going back after I released the presentation in April of 2020 and told me that, hey, Mike, now that the cat is out of the bag, Ronnie also drummed on Beatle tracks.
And Hal Blaine was another one, right?
I believe it's possible that Hal Blaine was another drummer for the Beatles. And because Bernard Purdy said that when he was fixing the records, when he was laying down the tracks, he was doing it at the Capitol Studios in the U.S. So for that to happen, then the tapes had to be shipped over or transported over from EMI over to Capitol. Now, Capitol is a subsidiary of EMI. It's part of the same family. Also in Memoirs is a footnote that drops a very subtle hint that another guitarist on the Beatles songs could possibly have been Glenn Campbell. And Glenn Campbell, of course, played for the Wrecking Crew.
And that's what Hal Blaine and a Capitol in L.A., the Beach Boys, and all the groups had used them all. And
Right.
It's just when you start to see that, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, has the Wrecking Crew been in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Have they ever put them in?
I think some of them have.
Well,
We'd have to check that. I think some of them
but
have.
they all should be in. They played on all the records.
Yeah.
and
yeah,
the
them-
people that are in should not be because they didn't play on the records.
Yeah, you had them. You also had, in the U.S., you had the Swampers out of Muscle Shoals in Alabama. I
Right.
highly recommend. There's a documentary on Amazon titled Muscle Shoals, and they were doing the same thing as the Wrecking Crew. So what people have to understand is the music business, the entertainment business, is a business. and it's there to make money, and it's there to put a product out as cost effectively as they possibly can and make money. And the whole premise that these big time producers and these labels are going to spend a lot of time just jerking around with musicians that are not up to speed, that just can't bang out the tune. It just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't
And
work
how
that
about
way.
auto tune that came in to help the singers being on pitch? You were talking about that. We were talking back and forth on the emails.
Yeah.
That is another thing that is I mean, so many of these people that you see. There's a great video that Sasha pulled up about What, we showed up with Britney Spears, her actual singing. Ever seen that video? Where she's not really singing it live, and it's yeah. But that's how many other people. When you see them all running around dancing all the time, it's all about let's see how they can run around the stage. And there's no way you can sing it during that kind of thing. I mean, but they played her and what she was really sounding like, and she wasn't singing anything close.
People have no idea.
Sounds like girl just needs one.
Yeah, no tighter than that.
Boys, the lover and to hold.
Sasha's playing it right now.
Okay.
Boys, and when a girl is with one. Boys, they
That's enough,
share
Sasha.
Here's the studio version.
All right.
Boys, sometimes a girl just needs one.
You hear a difference in the studio versus the live?
Yeah.
And then you could take it to the Beatles too. Look at, like I said, when you listen real carefully, like the Shea Stadium, you know, they couldn't hear anything anyway, and they sounded halfway decent for being up there because they had such small mics and everything. But again, you take the studio version versus live, and it's night and day all the time. So, and remember what the Monkees said. Davy Jones said what the Beatles were. What was his exact quote?
He said they were the first manufactured band.
Right.
Right. Now, what people don't understand is when they go to a live show, this has been going on for decades, folks. It's not just today. But what you're hearing during that show is a couple of things going on. Number one, there are many times there's a backing track that's being played. Okay, so these big bands are playing to a backing track. There are also off-stage or backstage musicians, whether they be singers, guitar players, bass players, or whatnot, that are there in order to supplement the live performance. And I went to a Foreigner concert going back about 5 or 6 years ago. It was their 40th anniversary concert. And of course, they had those big television sets, right? So you can watch what's going on. And I was watching the guitar player. And by the way, not one of the original members of Foreigner was up there. So basically, you paid good money to go see a tribute band. And as I'm watching what's being played, the guitarist, what he's playing on the guitar, and what I'm hearing
Was different.
I'm like, it was different. Yeah. So the person I was with at the time, I said, are they playing to a backing track? And they said, I think they are. And so, you know, I watched a little bit more, and that's definitely what they were doing. So I wound up not staying for the concert. I left. I said, well, I'm not going to sit here and listen to a CD. I can go home and listen to Foreigner at home on a CD. So what folks don't understand is that there is so much that goes into the production on this stuff. I have a friend of mine who is out of Europe. He's a professional sound engineer. And he has shown me live concerts, and they're going to be released as a CD. What is done post-production is unbelievable. So it's so unbelievable that what you hear in that CD, if you were actually at the concert, that is not what you heard. The enhancements are so significant and so drastic, and it's done in order to package this thing, polish it up, very high production value when it goes out for sale on a CD or an album or whatever. And this also happened with the Beatles, okay? So I have footage of the Beatles in Budokan in 1966, and the beginning of Day Tripper starts, and both John and George did not play the riff, yet the riff was playing.
Right.
How could that be? There were backstage musicians that were playing the songs, helping them along. And this is, I actually had this captured, and I had two people who are in the music industry, two very, very accomplished people, come back to me and say, that's exactly what was happening. In fact, one person told me that that's what they used to do, not for the Beatles, but they used to be backstage or off stage, and they would play during live performances in order to bolster the pretty faces that were on stage. The other thing that's done, and it's done today, is backing tracks. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll mix the backing track in with what's actually being played on stage, or it'll be more of a backing track if what's being played on stage is of lesser quality, sort of sound quality, musicianship, and stuff like that. So a lot of the Beatles stuff that people keep bringing up, they'll send me videos and say, well, listen how good they sounded back in 1964 and 65 on stage. They're playing live and all that, and blah, blah, blah. Well, hey, by the way, they had 2-track recorders back then. How was it possible that they were able to capture that level of distinction between the instruments with a 2-track recorder? The answer is they couldn't. Okay? So what they did was, after these performances were done and these videos were released, well, in between the performances being done and the videos being released, there was post-production that was done to enhance the audio. Now, this sounds crazy to a lot of people, but again, I have folks, sources of mine, that have come back to me and said, yes, that is exactly what takes place. This is what happens. And there are clips out there that are not official releases of the Beatles playing live, and you can hear the difference in the musicianship. You can hear the difference in the sound quality. You've got this one which sounds very scratchy, rough, amateurish, and then you've got this other video here with a much higher level of production, and it sounds fantastic. Well, the reason why it sounds fantastic is because of all this post-production that went into creating the final product. So I probably talked a lot more about stuff than you wanted me to, but once I get on a roll with
as
this.
you said on my birthday, hey, it's your birthday, man. You can talk. You can talk as long as you want, man. Don't stop. I mean,
Yeah. The Beatles are a machine, John.
They're a
machine.
do you want to hear the song you wrote for your wife, Pretty Lady?
Yes, let's play Pretty Lady.
Pretty Lady. You got it up there, Sasha? Let's put it that.
Here we are, you and me. It took some time for us to see, and now we're back where we belong, and that's the reason for this song. Pretty lady, I love you with all my heart. We had our ups, we had our downs. That rocky road turned us around. A little lesson from deep inside, telling us we need to try. Pretty lady, I love you with all my heart. I never stopped loving you. All alone, feeling blue. Lonely nights in my bed. Memories in my head. Pretty lady, I love you with all my heart. We met for lunch, and there you are. I saw you step out of the car. I want you back in my life. all my heart. Holding hands into the night, waking up to the morning light. A brand new day and it shines. I am yours and you are mine. Pretty lady, I love you with all my heart.
It's one of my favorites of yours. I think it's great. I've heard it now about 5 times. It grows on me every time there, Mike.
Well, let me just say to my wife, hon, I love you very much.
And let me just say to her, too, Mike loves you very much if she's listening. In case she needs...
She'll be listening.
Unless she needs, another one to say it to her so she knows it's true. And that's, I was going to go into Agenda 19. We can't say the thing that happened 2020. It started. We're going to play your Breathe in a little bit. But the bottom line is, if you're willing to give your freedoms that fast when you have liars, thieves, pedophiles, psychopaths, those are who are at the top of the food chain, folks. And when they're telling you to wear a face diaper, and by the way, I have to censor myself before they censor me. Have you ever thought we'd be in this position, Mike, where we have to censor ourselves before they will censor us? That's what's going on with this whole thing.
Yep.
So Agenda 19 is what it is. It's an agenda. It's not a disease. And if you can still trust Dr. Effie and Billy Gates and the Center for Disease Creation. By the way, did you notice what my shirt says?
No, what does it say?
Compliance is not in my DNA.
There you go.
Yeah, and you were talking about how people turned on you on the PIDs people, and I've had many. I've got over 40 truth songs about 40 different topics, and I've never been able to stay in the truth movement. Remember when Shelley was here with us on my birthday? You, Mike, are your own truth movement at the end of the day.
Right.
I am my own truth movement. Why?
Right.
Because if you join the PID, they would have kicked you out. When I was in 9/11 Truth, I left on my own because they were only talking about Building 7 over and over. There's much more to it that's more important. And the same thing with all. And I can't say other things because I will get thrown off here. But that's what I wanted to say real quick about it. I don't want to talk about... I just want people to know about the numbers game, though. 9/11, they said there were 19 hijackers. But if you do enough research, there weren't any, folks. 19 years later, we get Agenda 19. Do you think 19 may mean something? 1 is for artificial, 9 is for intelligence. They don't like people. They want everything to be robotic. I mean, it's not seeing that with the modern technology. Everything is everybody out to dinner looking at their phones. No one's bothering to talk and be human anymore. That's what they don't want us to be, human. So at the end of the day, folks, I still have my flip phone here, my trusty flip phone. And at the end of the day, you have to know that if you still believe there's a new variant up in, I wrote it down here, in Canada. What do they call it? Oh, the Kraken. Kraken 19 subvariant Kraken is now the new fear virus. Mike, we can't talk anymore. Get off. Go lay down. Put a mask over you. Anyway, that they just keep coming up with new ones, folks. It's all not really good. But let's play Mike's song about this. Breathe. We need to, don't we?
You want to breathe?
You want to breathe, Mike?
Breathe is fine.
Take a breath. We'll play this song.
We have to rise above this mess, see the lies and pass the test. Take off that mask and don't be a fool. Take them to task.
Jim Miller Project. Great tune, Mike.
Breathe.
Getting a lot of compliments there, Mike.
Let's go.
Now, I want everybody to take a deep breath as we move on. So take a deep breath, enjoy the oxygen, and that's one of my favorite songs of yours, Mike. And where can people get your songs if they want to buy your CD? You got the CD out, right? The one release, your new one? Or you put out a new CD?
I remastered my 2013 album, Leaving Dystopia. So that is up for sale, along with my second album, Hollow Moon, and the third album I'm hoping to have out by the spring of this year. I just finished up the 9th song, so I have to get the 10th down. But to get to my music, just go to my hub website, Sage of Quay, SAGEOFQUAY.com, and you'll see all the links to all of my platforms, including my music.
You hear that, folks, on the chat? Everybody go there. And we're going to play Hollow Moon next, I think, coming up. But I wanted to bring up a few things about what people don't understand, how we are controlled by symbols, numbers, words, and colors, everything and every aspect of our advertising. Have you seen enough advertising that shows you enough numbers and symbols that make you go, God, it's always right in front of our face, everything. And one thing that people don't realize that was implemented on 9/11 was COG, continuity of government. Peter Dale Scott wrote a book, Road to Ground Zero, which I then wrote a song, Road to Ground Zero. And basically, it's still in effect, which means the Constitution has been shredded because it's all about terror. And that's their excuse for doing it, continuity of government. And by the way, folks, you've never been told the truth about JFK. All the assassins that they say did it, not one that did it. Mark David Chapman, they're all patsies. The only truth we've ever heard in our lives was, I think Oswald said it on the day or after, he's a patsy. Now, if anyone can come up with any other truth we've been told on the television, what should a free CD you get? What's a good prize if you can come up with something there, Mike? Think I'm safe? Think anyone can come up with anything truthful other than Oswald saying he was a patsy?
No, give them free CDs. I don't know if that's motivation enough, but you'd be hard pressed to find it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And think about it. Now, one thing you'll find, Mike, as you get older, okay, you appreciate guys like me more because I'm 6 years older than you. You like older people more as you get older. That's what I do. See, now I don't like you because you're 6 years younger than me. See you see how it works?
Yeah.
When I'm out tuning pianos and I tune for older people, I always say, I really appreciate you a lot. Why? They're 75 or 80 years old.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about getting older. And one thing your body does in the last 6 years is I got 2 bad shoulders, a bad left hip, and a hernia on the right side. It's not looking good, but I'm still here. Thankfully, right?
That is one of the things, though. Your body does start to ache a lot as you get older.
Right. Exactly. So anyway,
you're young and your body doesn't ache. Count your blessings, because as you get older, it's going to change.
Well, you want to see what 70 looks like? Here it is. There it is. It's not a pretty picture. Let's put it that way. In fact, I wanted to bring up any other topic you want to talk today. We can talk about anything. Anything on the table you want to put out there?
Well, you mentioned the number 19, John, just real quick. So when we had the event back in 2001, again, we have to speak in code. And then 19 years later, we have the
Agenda 19.
We have CVID, right?
Right.
So the number 19, when you add the 9 and the 1 together, you get the number 10. And the number 10 is a number of completion and new beginnings. So the way you can look at that is, so September 11th was a new beginning. It was a transformative event that was going to move their ball forward to push their agenda forward, right? And then we could then look at March of 2020 as another new event to move the ball forward. So, what they do is they have major events and they play it out for a period of time, and then a new major event has to take place. They can't keep playing something that's 20 years old, right? So this is what they do, and the numbers, John, are very important to them. I've had people say to me, oh, you can make numbers add up to or multiply to whatever it is you want to see, or it's absolutely not true. And the thing is, this world is run by occultists. You have to understand that. It's not run by Donald Trump. It's not run by Joe Biden or Trudeau or any of these other, quote, heads of state. These
They're
are
all
puppets.
actors. They're all
all
actors.
actors, exactly. Behind the scenes, you have occultists. You have the cultic elite, and numbers are part of their signs and symbols. And what I try to get across to my audience is you don't have to be an expert in this stuff, but you should have enough under your belt so that you recognize it when you see it, and it gives you much better insight as to what it is they're trying to do. It also allows you to prepare, and you can avoid many of the traps that they're putting out there, because that's what they do. They want a minefield out there. They just, wherever you step, they want to blow you up. And we have to get smarter about how it is they communicate, how it is they plan, how it is they strategize, how it is that they execute. And the more we can do that, we will be able to head them off at the pass. It's when you're blind and you're unknowing and you're ignorant and you're just sitting there, that they're just going to mow you right over.
Add to that, everyone can find the truth of what you and I have looked at. Everybody can. If you want the truth. Again, another number, the Las Vegas shooting here was at Harvest 91.
Right.
Okay, Harvest 9-1, and then it was on 10-01. 10-9-11-01. It spells right away, and I saw that the day it happened. See, if you're already conscious of numbers, the two windows were broken 9 windows apart, and they were 11 floors down. There's 9/11 all over the Vegas event, but at the end of the day, it's the same club that George Carlin said, but George Carlin didn't say who the club was because he knew that it wouldn't be good for him if he did. But we know who the club is, and at the end of the day, they're the ones pulling all the strings. They're the ones that control the financial situation. The Federal Reserve, it's not a reserve, it's not federal, it's not part of the government.
They own Hollywood.
They own Hollywood. And I've had many songs. By the way, people, I don't know how many of your friends are here today, but they ought to know about me. All my CDs are censored. Everything I do is censored. So you're looking at a bad man here, in case you didn't know that. Because I always am on the target. You're always on the target. And I have a new Rumble channel that has our newest video, which you like, that trans jab man, which shows, hey, folks, and Dr. Kerry Mullis at the end explaining. And what he said about Dr. Effie is what I say about all these other people. If you don't research anything, he said this about the guy in charge of our Agenda 19. He doesn't know anything about anything. And if you are just watching the mainstream media news, listening to your government and big pharma, remember, everything's brought to you by Pfizer. We're not brought to you by Pfizer. But if you just listen to those three things before this started, if you ask the average person, do you trust the government? Most people would say no. Do you trust the mainstream media? No. Do you trust big pharma? No. Then a switch goes off, and they bring in Agenda 19, and everybody's scared to death again. It's the fear frequency. Now, I make a living as a piano tuner listening to frequencies. Luckily, I don't listen to the fear frequency in my tuning or anything. If you don't listen to it, if you ignore it, you're fine. Period. End of story. And if you research all the events, the big events. The moon landing, one sentence. Richard M. Nixon made a landline call to the moon that day. That's it.
Right.
And they lost all their videos. NASA, not a space agency, never a straight answer. Those are smart, secret militarized armaments and resident technology. They all stand something that is easy to figure out if you know. Anyway, I had to throw that in, Mike.
Well, they haven't been back to the moon in 50 years, right? So, and then you have Elon Musk sending a car to Mars, and how anybody can believe that.
Well, he said it was fake too. He said
it was so fake it had to be real. That's what he said.
And that's telling everybody everything we're actually told is so fake it has to be real. And wake up. Don't listen to them. Ignore them. I wish everybody would throw away their smartphones and come back to the flip phoners like me. I want you back. I'll greet you with open arms because I'm on the internet in the morning and at night. That's it.
People have to understand that they're making it real. Your investment and your believing in what it is that they're presenting, they're feeding you through the television set. You're adopting that, embracing that, being fearful. That is what's making it real. Your thoughts and your consciousness manifest reality.
Exactly.
And so they could take the most far-fetched thing in the world, the most ridiculous premise in the world. If people buy into it, then it becomes real in the sense that it becomes a topic of discussion. It becomes something that people are preoccupied with. And the best way to do this, as John had mentioned, is just unplug that television set and focus on your life. Focus on your family, your friends. Get back to basics, folks, and get away from all of this nonsense that they continually pump out.
It reminds me of one of my favorite Mark Twain quotes, and he has a plethora of quotes, Mark Twain. I don't know if they gave them to him, but when you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect.
Yeah.
And that's about this whole thing. And then he said, don't let schooling interfere with your education. You're indoctrinated in school. John D. Rockefeller, the first snake oil salesman during the Spanish flu. By the way, folks, that was another one that isn't real. Spain was named after it because they wouldn't fight in World War I, so that was their punishment. So they called it the Spanish flu. It had nothing to do with Spain. And he said, we don't want thinkers, we want workers. And he's the guy in charge of modern medicine, of toxic medications and poison jabs. And he's in charge of our education system, which is indoctrination. And that's what it is, folks. Now, I know, do I sound like a bad guy for saying that? According to them, I'm a bad guy for saying that, right? We're not supposed to think that, ever. And the next song I wanted to play yours was Hollow Moon, since we were talking about the space. I mean, they're not a space agency. Let's play Hollow Moon for you right now. How's that?
I was walking down this dusty road, a little tired from carrying this load. What is my life really all about? Born with a smile, die with a shout. I can hear the voices going round and round. There's an old woman
Mike, were you on the drums on that one?
No, that was a drum machine.
Okay.
Were you playing lead?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounded great, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was
Got
gonna.
some compliments in the chat.
You mean that wasn't Ringo on the drums?
No.
That wasn't George Harrison's playing lead?
Would have taken me a lot longer to record the song if it was Ringo on drums.
Okay. Wait, hey, let's leave Ringo out of this. And by the way, what I was gonna say.
No, I was going to say all of the instrumentals I do. Aside
Okay.
from, I program the drum machine and then I do all the guitars, the bass, and the keyboards.
Okay.
Singing.
Well, that's good. You're a one-man band.
I'm a one-man band.
And speaking of another place, weird scenes inside the Laurel Canyon, David McGowan did great research on all the musicians that come from military intelligence families. Stephen Stills, Frank Zappa, and they all. My story that he gave that I remember was, I think the story is Neil Young met Stephen Stills at a corner, and then about a month later they were playing at the 1967 Monterey Festival. Yeah, they met, and then the Byrds didn't play hardly anything. They didn't know how to play. I think David Crosby barely played guitar when they went there. And again, that's another example of all these Rock and Roll Hall of Famers out of nowhere. The two things that he did the best of was just all the entertainment business from Laurel Canyon, actors and singers. And then he was great, too, with showing the moon landing, man. He was all over that. And if you ask somebody that still believes in the globe and you ask them if they believe the moon landing, then there's no reason to have a discussion about anything. If you still believe that. I mean, come on. Did you see what they brought up there? I mean, and then Kubrick, the guy who did that, he did the movie Eyes Wide Shut, and he showed the version that we never saw, and 2 weeks later he was gone. So, I mean, there's all kinds of people don't understand. A lot of times people will ask me, well, John, it'd have to be such a big conspiracy. Well, Santa Claus, they've gotten away with that forever. One comes to mind, right? I mean, you still have that. And Christian holiday is a pagan holiday, and Easter. Because of your research, you realize, again, all around, and supposedly the beginning of the year is actually in March, the beginning of spring. The Gregorian calendar they changed, or that they made that in the change in the calendar. I mean. Again, you start talking about all this stuff, and do you ever get this face of someone that has never looked at anything? Here's the face. Yep. No emotion, no blinking of the eyes.
You're reptilian.
You're telling, they could be reptilian or whatever, but you tell them something that is so basic to understand, and they look at you with no expression, and they just... And you want to shake them and go, did you hear what I said? And forget about it.
We have to come to grips, John, with the fact that many people are gone. And they don't have the capacity to be able to comprehend what it is that's being presented to them. They have been programmed for so long that they actually have filters. So as soon as you start talking about something that might be meaningful to them, something that might make them spark a little bit with regard to pursuing the truth, they just shut it right down. And so all of the conditioning, all of the mind control, the brainwashing has been in place. And what it does is it's actually a policing mechanism that allows the official narratives and all of these lies to continue, because these people actually defend the deception and the lies. It's truly amazing.
Well, I don't call them sheeple anymore. I call them useful idiots, because that's what they are. They're useful to the ones on top doing these hoaxes and going along with it. And they're idiots for not understanding that when this started, I told people, if they told us to stick your thumb up your you know what every day for 5 hours and make you feel better, you'd see people doing it. I mean, it does. Sasha says it actually does.
I'm not going there.
Sasha, come on now. Hey, Sasha, I paid you to be quiet this time. I got to pay him more this time to keep his mouth shut over there, okay? But anyway, that's where we're at.
Yeah, so back in March of 2020, John, when they told everybody to cover their faces, I've mentioned this before in other shows. I was literally taken back by how many people just fell in line and just did it. And we still have people, my wife and I talk about this. My wife is totally awake too. God bless her.
Well, she wouldn't have married you if she wasn't.
Yes, that's true. Who's going to marry this lunatic?
If she was a Beatle fan, if she believed Paul was alive, oh my God. Okay.
So, yeah. So when we go out, even now, there's no quote mandates in place, and people are still walking around with themselves all wrapped up. And the only thing you can say, that what I think to myself is, like I just said, they're just too far gone. There's no coming back for many of these people.
Right.
They, you would call them non-playing characters, NPCs. Maybe they're props in the reality, props in the simulation. I don't know, But the problem with people that don't come around, and there's a lot of them, is that there's only one ship. If there were two ships and you and I are on this ship here and Sasha, and they want to be on that ship over there and sink,
right,
knock yourself out, right? But the problem is there's only one USS Earth, and we're all on it, and it's a tough job to get people to wake up,
And they'll bring us down if they don't wake up, basically. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the reason you want them to say, hey, look at this. Quit obeying these Klaus Schwab. You'll have nothing and you'll be happy.
It's mindless compliance.
Yeah.
It's mindless.
Giving your freedoms away for free is what they're doing.
Yeah.
And your body's freedom's number one with all the stuff they're going to stick in you. And it's just mind-boggling on that. It's sad, and you can laugh at things and cry at the same time. There's never been a time in my life where I actually laugh and cry at the same time when I see things that are out there right now.
Yeah, well, in 5 to 10 years, I think we're going to see a lot of health problems. There's going to be a lot of issues, coronary issues, pulmonary issues, neurological issues, autoimmune, death, and so on. There is I'll phrase it this way, there is a population reduction plan in place. And anybody who doesn't see that you're totally asleep.
Oh, boy.
As well as, what else? I mean, the only... And what I was going to bring up a few things that a lot of people don't realize, other topics. Another book that I think everybody should read if you want to know what a foreign policy 101 is, John Perkins' book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. That's been the foreign policy forever, going to poor countries, taking their resources, and propping up a dictator. People don't understand. CIA operative was Saddam Hussein in 1959, Emmanuel Noriega. CIA operative Osama bin forgotten, but then when he died, he was already dead. But all these people work for the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. By the way, everything they tell you is the opposite too. What's intelligent about bringing cocaine to all our cities? That's the CIA. That's an intelligent agency. The FBI, they we're all responsible for the Oklahoma City. I mean, if you do enough research, you'll find this. But then you'll see the mainstream media on the day of that when it happened, they just keep regurgitating the official story over and over and over and over. And you're like, come on, man. Enough already. Enough of these official stories. I can't take it after a while.
Also, the folks in the military have got to wake up, John. They've got to wake up. They're not fighting for freedom. They're not fighting for, quote, democracy. You're not fighting for any of that. You're fighting for an imperialist regime. That's what you're fighting for. So that's what you're contributing toward. They give you the bullshit story that it's all about freedom and this and that and all that, right? But that's not what it's about at all. And the proof in the pudding with regard to how much they care about the military is they made them take the
jab. Yeah, I know of many cases. People have told me they know military people that have died from it already.
Yeah.
And what I want to know is there's enough evidence to arrest Dr. Effie, Bill Gates. There's enough evidence to arrest the Center for Disease Control. No, the Center for Disease Creation. They create them all. There's enough evidence to create all the people behind this Agenda 19. But where is law enforcement? They have to be in on it too, because they're not arresting all these people that are making life a living hell for so many people.
Most of the law enforcement in this country, especially the larger law enforcement organizations, are all Masonic.
Yeah, well,
people have to come to grips with that as well.
That's what your story of the 300 book. They list all the people involved, and they're all the people they're supposed to trust, and they're all in on it.
Yeah, and that's 35 years ago. And so when you like I mentioned earlier in the show, John Coleman wrote that book 35 years ago. Fast forward 35, 40 years, and you have to think to yourself, well, how much more progress have they made? The level of subversion is unbelievable. We have Klaus Schwab openly admitting that the World Economic Forum grooms players to be in positions, in key leadership positions, as prime ministers, Trudeau as an example, to push their agenda forward. This is not a system of it's not, quote, democracy. It's not a republic. People, your vote doesn't mean squat, okay? It doesn't mean squat. And if you didn't learn that going back to the past election, then I don't know what to tell you. You know, people think that, oh, I'm going to go into the voting booth and I'm going to vote.
And it's going to change things.
Well, they don't even have any idea, John, whether that voting booth, that machine is even plugged in.
Right.
Where does it go? You know? So the only thing people see is what they project on the television set. And this is the story. This is how they do everything. Everything is projected onto the TV. And people sit there and they just absorb it like sponges. They take it at face value and they believe whatever it is that is presented to them.
Well, never forget Bush 5, Gore 4. That's all you got to know about an election.
Right.
All that went through, the Chads and all that
hanging
stuff.
Chads.
And at the end of the day, it was 5-4. Why didn't we just do that to start instead of going? The Kennedy election, if you do any research on that, where I'm from, Chicago, Mayor Daley, he won so often with the dead vote. It was very common knowledge that Mayor Daley won every year because he used the dead vote. Did you know that dead people voted? In Chicago, they did for years, and he made sure that Kennedy won. You can find every single election is a fraud. But what is done about it? Where's law enforcement? Why don't they do anything? Because they're in on it too. So the only answer is every useful idiot out there has to wake up instead of being lost and say, I'm right. I mean, John and Mike are right here, folks. We got to start speaking out of it, on it. I've never been afraid to speak out. You've never been afraid to speak out. But we need more and more people to do it, man. Speak out.
Yeah, what people have to do, they'll say, well, I don't know what to do, Mike. It sounds hopeless. It's hopeless if you don't do anything.
Exactly.
But it's not hopeless if you start your own blog, put up a website, start posting videos, get yourself a BitChute account or a Odyssey account or a Rumble account or a Brighteon account, ones that don't censor.
As much.
I have to be honest, I've had some very good luck with those four. But that's what we need to do. Instead of just sitting there listening to podcasts and then having a conversation with yourself or maybe a buddy or whatever, that's good. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be discussing things, but more people have to activate. There needs to be more of a kinetic effort to get information out. I mean, they're not going to be able to stifle everybody. So we have strength in numbers, and that's what has to happen. Everybody has to do something. Oh, I don't know how to start up a website, or I don't know how to do a podcast. Well, sit down and learn. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard.
Well, it's not hard for me because I got Sasha doing it for me.
Well, see that. But you see, you figured it out. You got somebody that knows what they're doing.
I'm a technology idiot, but on purpose. It's on purpose because I'm good at one thing, piano tuning and songwriting. Piano tuning is the one thing that's kept me going. I've tuned for many celebrities this last year, and can I tell one story about it?
Sure.
I was tuning for Anita Baker.
Oh, okay.
She comes on in a mask and says, "Everybody has to mask up." And I just sat there, tuned the piano, and I didn't do a thing. Everybody's running around going to get them. And she must have felt my vibe because she didn't even come close to me, man.
Yeah.
I was hoping she would. I was like, come over here. I want to talk to you. And John Mellencamp last year, they wanted me to take the test up my nose. And I've turned down 5 major concert tunings. It's not about the money. It's about my health.
Yeah.
They wanted to stick ethylene oxide up my nose.
Right.
And
Which is a carcinogen.
As Dr. Carrie Mullis says, it doesn't even tell you you're sick. And that's not me talking. That's the guy who created the test. And I can find this out. Can anybody else? You know, it's like if people want to know a real good book, Dissolving Illusions by Dr. Suzanne Humphreys goes through the whole history of jabs and medications and all the things that they've been pushing on us. And, doctors, I always tell people every day, when you doctor something, that's not good. You know, you want to doctor this? What do you go see? A doctor. Why do they call them doctors? They're not. Are they doctoring your health for the good most of the time? No. You know, but that's just me. No, that's you too.
I tell you, John, this whole thing going back to March of 2020 has really, really shed a bad light on the healthcare system and how inept many of these doctors are. Before March of 2020, I think most people would have put a doctor in much higher standing. I'll put it that way.
Right.
I myself, the only way I'm going to wind up in a doctor's office is if I have to be stitched up or have a broken arm or something very bad happens. In other words, it's out of my control. I'm going to be thrown into an EMS vehicle and hauled off to the hospital. But, you know, they are some of the most brainwashed people that are out there. And that's because they're in a system that has indoctrinated them.
More so than ever. And you ought to get my jab exemption card. Do you have a jab exemption card?
No, I don't. My exemption card is
no. But I'm saying if they're wheeling you into the emergency room and you can't talk, you got to pull one of these out.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's why I got it. Put it on, tape it on your forehead as they're pulling you in. You know, say, hey, well, what's he doing?
Well, the other thing too, if you go to a hospital and you need a blood transfusion, make sure you have blood donors lined up that don't have infected blood.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so if you have to go have an operation or a surgery, you know, get some family and
or give your own blood before it. That's
your own blood. Yep, or your own blood. Have that lined up. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to get a transfusion, but it's not what you're going to want to have in your body.
Right.
You know,
this is the position they put so many people in.
When I gave blood, if I would have been vaccinated, they wouldn't take my blood.
So when you went to go give blood, they wouldn't take it because you didn't take the jab?
No, if I would have taken the jab, they wouldn't take the blood.
Really?
Yep. That was one of the questions.
Oh.
So somebody didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
Hey, here's one of the you see it, Mike?
Yep.
The home test.
The home test.
Hey, wait, this is what I can give out.
How come you guys got 3 of them?
Well, they keep handing them here. Sasha gives them to me all the time.
I got a neighbor that just keeps giving it to me. I'm like, okay, I'll give it to John. He knows what to do with
In
it.
fact, today's show, if you can come up with something truthful after Lee Harvey Oswald saying I'm a patsy, you'll get this. We'll give out these free Agenda 19 tests. How's that? Is that good? Is that? Will that get me more? Hey, by the way, I never do this very often, but press the like and subscribe, folks.
Yeah, do that.
Press the like and subscribe. I love when I go to videos and that first thing they do. You never do that. I never see you do that.
No, I don't do that.
I know.
Yeah.
That's one reason I like coming to your video. Some of the videos, they for the first 5 minutes, they're saying, come on, press the like and subscribe. Press the like over and over. I go, okay, we got that. Let's move on to what you're supposed to talk about, man.
Paid promotions too. So, I understand why some folks do the paid promotions because what they're doing actually is their job.
Right.
All right. So I'm not going to knock that. And in fact, I don't knock monetizing your channel because a lot of work goes into preparing a podcast and the production afterwards and all of that stuff,
Right,
So,
exactly.
and folks, we have to buy new equipment, hard drives go, monitors go, new microphones and
They
stuff
change
like that.
the system on you all the time.
Yep.
That's why I got Sasha for that, because they change it all the time on us, man.
But when they put the paid promotions at the front of the video and it takes up the first 4 or 5 minutes,
Yeah.
put the paid promotion toward the back of the video. That would be my recommendation, So in any case, YouTube demonetized my main channel.
Hey, that's another song of yours, We Are One. Do you want to hear that one?
Either We Are One or Johnny Lighttone, if I gave that to you.
Oh,
Yeah,
Johnny Lighttone then. Well, my name's Johnny, so we
Yeah.
might as well go.
Let's play Johnny Lighttone.
Hey, look over there, it's a shiny silver ship. Man, that's cool. Man, he's hip with his jet black hair and his big white smile. He lies to you, but he does it with style. He promises the moon with a sleazy little wink. His rattlesnake eyes tell you how to think. He's all glossed up and made for TV. Mr. Prime Time got you on your knees. Get in line, kiss the ring of Johnny Lighttone. He's so fine, everybody sing Johnny Lighttone. His eyes are cold, his blood is ice. Believe in him and pay the price. He leads the blind when you can see. He steals your mind so you're not free. Johnny Lighttone. Johnny Lighttone. Come on. His eyes are cold, his blood is ice. Believe in him and pay the price. He leads the blind when you can see. He steals your mind so you're not free. Johnny Lighttone. Johnny Lighttone. Hey, look over there, it's a shiny silver ship. Man, that's cool. Man, he's hip with his jet black hair and his big white smile. He lies to you, but he does it with style. He promises the moon with a sleazy little wink. His rattlesnake eyes tell you how to think. He's all glossed up and made for TV. Mr. Prime Time got you on your knees. Get in line, kiss the ring of Johnny Lighttone. He's so fine, everybody sing Johnny Lighttone.
Mike, I'm going to return the favor. My next song is going to be called Be Like Mike, since you have one named after me there, okay? Is that okay? Do you mind?
That sounds great, John.
Hey, John, I mean, Mike. John.
Does that make your birthday even more exciting to know that I'm going to write a song for you?
It makes it very, very special. Extremely so.
Well, Sasha, what were you going to
I
say?
was going to say let's collab on a song.
Yeah, I told you we need to collaborate, all three of us, and do a song together.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Sasha, by the way, Sasha and I have the Two Devils song out there. I don't know if you saw the video of that one.
Yes.
I was beating the guys up, and then we did the 6 feet apart, 6 feet under. Sasha came in on that one, and I'm Not Trending. By the way, I'm Not Trending was all about the G towers.
Mm-hmm.
That song, the song, get this, was censored after I released it for 1 week. It's all about the. Did anyone see that? Okay. They said it was racist and hate speech.
Yeah.
Now, did you get demonetized? What'd you get demonetized for?
I just got an email from YouTube going back about, I don't know, three months ago, let's say, around there. And just out of the blue, they said, we did a manual review of your channel, and we're going to demonetize you. Doesn't fit with our partner program. So that was that. I really didn't get a reason. And then they said you can reapply. So I reapplied. I waited about a month or so, and it's really interesting. Like about 15 minutes later, they sent me an email back saying, nope, demonetized. So basically, you have to understand they have you on the radar, and once you're on their list, that's that. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate.
Well, on my BitChute channel, I've got tons of videos that just won't play anymore, and I was surprised about that.
I don't think that's BitChute. I think BitChute is being screwed with.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that too, where the videos will basically start and stop.
Well, they look like they're what's the word when they're getting ready to play it, and it looks like they're getting ready to play, and they don't
Yeah.
they don't
That's
play.
what Mike was saying. They start and stop.
It's like buffering.
Well, mine
right?
don't start. Mine don't start at all. They just.
Yeah. So what you have to do, John, Rumble is good, Odyssey is good too. I have never had that problem with Odyssey or Rumble. I have been told, like with some of my videos too, it's the same thing where you click play and you just sit there and you'll stare at the screen for 5 minutes.
Right. Well, that's what happens with a lot of mine.
Yep. So I don't think it's BitChute that's doing that. I don't think BitChute is censoring. I believe it's outside of them, and they're being screwed with.
Well,
because right now BitChute is growing larger and larger. My suspicion is I think Rumble just went public. I think they're on the stock exchange now. So as they grow, we're going to start seeing more of that with them as well. They just look, they're going to do everything they can not to get the word out. That's why I have 5 video platforms, including YouTube.
Right. Well, anyway, I wanted to bring up Kay Griggs. I saw you posted her.
Yeah.
Wife of a deep state military operative. I mean, her. I remember watching that years ago.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's more important now. Explain who she was and what's her video there, Mike.
Yeah, so I haven't watched it in a long time, but I must have watched a video around a decade ago, 10, 12 years ago. And she was the wife of a deep state operative who was a Marine colonel. And she had all kinds of insider information because he used to talk to her. He would tell his wife what was going on, which was foolish in itself. So Kay sat down and she did an 8-hour interview with this pastor. I forgot who his name was. And for 8 hours, I think they did it in, chunks. They didn't sit down for 8 hours,
right.
in one sitting. But and she took him through and the audience through everything that she knew. And for instance, one thing would be that the State Department is completely controlled by dual citizenship Israelis. That's just
not surprised.
One thing. Okay.
Not surprised at that at all.
She talked about how they go through the process of compromising. Talked about all of the non-heterosexual sex that's involved,
Yeah.
especially in order to climb the ladder. And this is interesting because this is exactly what Crowley did, Aleister Crowley, or Crowley, however you want to pronounce his last name. What he did with the OTO, which is an occult organization that Crowley headed up. And so when he ended up leading it, he made it mandatory that in order to achieve the higher degrees within the OTO, it involved, and the reason why I'm wording this intentionally this way, folks, so we don't get pulled, non-heterosexual sex magic, occult sex magic that had to do with same sex in order to achieve the higher degrees within the OTO. And in fact, I've done some research into this, and apparently there are folks that are in the higher ranking or degrees of the OTO that are extremely influential in world affairs. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because what Kay Griggs had said back in 1998, because that's when the interview was done, back in 98, so it's 15 years old now, it syncs right up with where Crowley was taking his sex magic and the occultists through at least his secret society. So
isn't there suspicions that William Shepard, Billy Shears, is the son of him?
Yeah. So it's strongly alluded to in memoirs. There's no hard, concrete evidence, but it seems like it's highly possible that Billy is the son of Aleister Crowley. Because somebody would say, well, if I go onto Wikipedia, it doesn't show his name there. Well, it's not going to show his name there because, first of all, Crowley was heavily involved in sex magic. And the way sex magic works is if a child is conceived during a sex magic occult ceremony, then that child is identified as a special child and is then groomed and handled to achieve very significant positions in world affairs as they get on in life. So my suspicion is that Billy was the result of a sex magic ritual. He was conceived from sex magic, and then he was tapped.
And he has a glass eye.
Yes, he has an artificial eye.
And you know who else had a glass eye? I think I sent you an email. It was the Beach Boys' father, who was the guy who ruled the Beach Boys. He was a tyrant. He had a glass eye too. Did you see that email I sent you?
Yes. Yep.
And so glass eyes, the Eye of Horus or Ra, right. And also the song "It Was 20 Years Ago Today." It kind of alludes to the fact that Crowley, wasn't it like 47 was when he
died in 1947,
and Billy would have been 10 years old, and he was taught by him. He was like taught the band to play. That was kind of what it was like.
Yeah. So in the book, he explains that he was tutored by Aleister Crowley. So Billy was born in 37. Crowley died in 1947.
Well, you know, Brian Wilson's dad was a composer, and it started to make me think about, he was musical before. He was a big influence on Brian, but eventually Brian fired him as their manager. But I thought about George Martin being the songwriter for the Beatles. I wonder if Brian was the guy or was his dad helping him out early with the songs. But they did steal some from Chuck Berry blatantly.
Yeah. Yeah, they were always, all the bands were always pinching and borrowing here and there. I mean, the Beatles did the same thing. But when you talk about glass eyes, a lot of people don't know this, that Jimmy Savile used to collect glass eyes.
And he was this pervert of child, wasn't he a pedophile? Big time.
Yeah, Jimmy Savile was a black magic occultist. Okay, so it's the whole glass eye ocular prosthetic is evidently very important in the occult. And yes, and it does go back to Egyptian mythology, the mysteries, right. Horus, Ra. And I covered this in a recent video.
Yeah, who was your friend that she had a glass eye? That's how she found it.
Yes. So Sally Whitty, Sally's a colleague. She's another researcher. She does excellent research. In fact, she's working on some research now that is going to be spectacular. We just have to get it pulled together. There's a lot there. But yeah, Sally has an artificial eye, and she picked up on it. And I said to her, we need to come out with this right away, because we were going to include it in a larger presentation that had to do with how the cultic elite tie back to mythology, like Odin and the Egyptian mysteries and so on. And I said, no, we can't wait. This has got to come out now. This can't be lost in the sauce, because it's very important. To me, it's the most significant piece of evidence that we have that the guy that's playing Paul McCartney today is not biological Paul McCartney, because biological Paul McCartney, the real Paul McCartney, didn't have a glass eye. And Billy does.
And they also explain to people how the pictures you'll see, the left eye will be looking out, and the right eye you'll see in the different pictures will be staying the same.
The eyes don't sync up.
Right.
The eyes don't align. So like when you have two good eyes and you're looking at somebody, both eyes look in the same direction. When you have a prosthetic eye or an artificial eye, what will happen is artificial eyes do move back and forth. Some people think they're static, and they're not. It actually depends upon how much damage was done to the eye. And I won't get into all of this, but suffice to say that Billy's eye does move. Like many other people who have prosthetic eyes, their eyes move. But they don't move in sync. Both eyes don't. Sometimes they will be in sync, and other times they won't be. And there are many pictures out there, images where you can see, if you take a piece of paper and you isolate half of Billy's face, his left eye is his good eye, his right eye is his artificial eye, you'll see that the eyes don't align. So the right eye might be looking straight at you, whereas the left eye might be looking a little bit to the left. Lots of examples like that. The other reason why it was a very important discovery is because Billy uses doubles and lookalikes as well. And it helps us to identify when the lookalikes and doubles are in play. Because in memoirs, Billy tells us that he wasn't the only one, or he isn't the only one to have played the part of Paul McCartney. Others have played the role. It's just that he has the permanent contract.
And he's a great musician too, as well.
And yes. And he is very schooled, formal education. You know, Billy can score music, read music, write music.
And it took the woman friend of yours who has a glass eye. Otherwise, this may not have been seen. Think about it. It took her saying, "Wait a minute, that looks like what I go through all the time."
Yes, exactly. So it is amazing that after 50 years, 50, 60 years really, that nobody else has picked up on it, including myself. I mean, I kind of leaned into it back in 2019, because when I was showing that he played the character Vivian Stanshall in the Bonzo Dog Band with Neil Innes.
Right.
Neil and Billy were close. And I suspect that Neil Innes was one of the ghostwriters for the Beatles, especially during the later period, 67 through 70. If you don't believe me, go listen to some of the Ruddles songs.
That's one of my favorite albums, by the way. I got their greatest hits. When I first got that CD, I was playing it everywhere, laughing my head off.
It's great. I mean, it's great. And his impersonation of John Lennon, he has it down to a T. Right. In fact, I have a bootleg of one of Lennon's albums, and on the bootleg, they have a version of Cheese and Onions, which is a Ruddle song.
Right.
So either the person who put the bootleg together was pulling a prank, knowing that it wasn't John Lennon, and put it on the album, or they thought it was John Lennon who was singing a song called Cheese and Onions. But,
that's a great title, let me tell you.
Yeah. So when you look at Billy, and the Stanshall character, I noticed that the eyes, I said that Billy had his eye drifted. He had a wandering eye.
Right.
And I didn't realize that, no, he has an artificial eye, not a wandering eye. And that's what helped me to identify and to, at least in my mind, to confirm that he did play the character of Stanshall, because I can look at images of him, and I can look at pictures of Stanchel,
And he had the same
and I can
kind
see
of
the same
eye.
eye configuration.
Right. That was another.
And
that's
then you
a
have
big
to ask
clue.
yourself, what are the odds?
And talk about that too with these other people that I wonder if anybody else who doesn't read these books saw that. What are they going to say to that? You can't dispute that at all.
John, the level of denial is just unbelievable. What I've noticed what people do is they will just ignore what they don't want to look at, what they don't want to hear, what they don't want to be affected by. They will just ignore it. I see it all the time. Somebody will say, you said this in the video, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, well, what about the other 10 things that I pointed out?
Right.
They don't want to talk about the other 10 things because the other 10 things will sink their ship. You see? And by the way, the thing that they were trying to call me out on, they were wrong anyway.
Right. Well, there's all kinds of truth people. Limited hangout people are out there that will give you a lot of truth. Then you bring up something that you know they should know, and they say, no, I don't know that.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, then you're a limited hangout.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
And that's why going back to you are your truth group. You're in your truth, your own truth club. At the end of the day, I can't tell you, Mike, no, you got to do this or that. No, you'll look at it when you're due time, but you're still a truth person all the time, and that's what I am. And that's what people don't have an open mind to just looking at everything. Or there's a few things there's a few things I can't say here that will trigger someone immediately, and you know what they are.
Yeah. Well, look, truth is not consensus. So there's truthers out there that they want consensus because it makes them feel comfortable, right? And by getting consensus, they might have a larger audience. But that's not truth. That's negotiation, right? That's negotiating with yourself. And I don't negotiate with myself. So I put my information out there, and it's not consensus. It's like, this is what I found. These are the dots I connected. And so I present it. And what I always tell my audience, John, is I'm not here to convince you. Really, I don't care about convincing you. I just like researching, and I like presenting my research. If you agree or it's something that resonates with you, fantastic. If it doesn't resonate with you, then that's okay too. You know, I'm not here to win a popularity contest. I'm really not, because if you're doing this type of work and you're doing it, it's not a popularity contest. You're going to have a whole lot more people not like you than people who like you.
It reminds me of the expression, don't shoot me, I'm only the messenger.
Right.
Hey, this is stuff that I found, and I've known so many people that they want to shoot me because I'm the messenger. I said, listen, this is what I found. Don't you want to look at it? Well, no. And they get mad at me, and I say, I didn't do this. Just like with this whole thing from March of 2020, I didn't make you do all this. I didn't call you a non-essential worker. We're all essentials.
Right.
I didn't tell you to stay in your home and not do anything.
Right.
The ones that want you to do that are not people to follow, folks. They're satanic, demonic, and they're trying to open portals of more satanic things throughout. If you look at everything, you'll see colors. Purple is a color they love. When Prince did Purple Rain, he was ahead of the curve on that. And that's what's going on, man. And a lot of times people that are up to their ears or eyes of it, they will tell you the truth a long time before we find out about it. And a lot of them don't die. Some of them go in hiding. Some, I don't know where they go, or take a new identity,
But there are those that do die, So.
Yeah, well, no, I know that. That. But not all of them. I don't think
If they're reptilian, they don't.
Well, who knows? Yeah, who knows? Anyway, as the first show that we did, Mike, was over 2 hours, and I didn't have any. It didn't feel like it. This is the same thing. It doesn't feel like it, man. But this is all about honoring you, my friend, who I become good friends with, and I always love watching your videos. The problem I have with you, Mike, is I'll be going. I have to go to work. And I'll start your video just to watch a little bit before I go. and I have to watch the whole thing, and I'm late to my appointment. That's my big problem with you, because once you start your videos, you can't stop. That's my problem with you.
Well,
You
thank
shouldn't
you,
make
John.
them so good at the beginning, will you? Will you try to make them so I can leave? Or say, why don't you do this in your next long one? Say, okay, John, you can go tune the piano now, and I'll get back to you when you come back, okay? Or something like that.
I'll do that. I'll put that in there.
Okay, yeah. I
It
appreciate
that way.
I appreciate if you do that, because I forget about it.
You have another Mike Williams?
Yeah, we got another one. Do you want? Is We Are One? You want to hear that one now?
We could do that, or do we have When You're Gonna Get It? Did I send you that?
Yeah, we got it.
Do you want to play that one then?
Yeah, let's end with that one. That's a newer song.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna end with after yours. I'm gonna play mine on the way out,
That's good.
because that's for you, man.
Okay.
I hope everybody wrote down Mike's websites where you can buy these songs.
Sitting around, wringing your hands, making believe you don't understand. Gotta be a mama who carried the load, pulling you along that rocky road. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it? All those years when you didn't pay your dues, singing along to the little boy blues. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it? Talking to me about your tale of woe. All this time with little to show. Gotta be a daddy who did you wrong, making you feel like you didn't belong. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it? All those years when you didn't pay your dues, singing along to the little boy blues. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it? Sitting around, wringing your hands, making believe you don't understand. Gotta be a mama who carried the load, pulling you along that rocky road. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it? All those years when you didn't pay your dues, singing along to the little boy blues. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it?
When are you gonna get it, folks? When are you gonna get it? We've been lied to. When are you gonna get it? Are you gonna listen to the media, the mainstream media? Oh! Nice ending there, Mike.
Thanks, little feedback.
Yeah. When are you gonna get it, man? That's when are you gonna get it that listening to Rachel Madcow is not a good idea? Huh? Am I right?
That's right.
When are you gonna get it that Creepy Joe and Camel Toe are not real leaders for us? Huh? That's a song I got to get going here one of these days. Another song I have in the works. Just because we're family doesn't mean we're friends. Then I have another song called about if you're not going to be nice to animals, man. I got a bumper sticker. Abuse an animal, go to jail. I love donkeys, pigs. I love all animals, man. They by the way, I believe they have souls too, man. I believe
Absolutely, they have souls, and anybody who does harm to animals is sick.
Yeah, well, that's my new one. Abuse an animal is going to be my next one there. But Mike, it's been a great. Listen. I've had so much fun on your birthday. I hope you've had as much fun as I've had.
It's been great, John. It's been a lot of fun.
I mean,
Absolutely.
And 64. And by the way, when you told me that on my birthday, I already thought about, well, Mike doesn't know it, but we're going to celebrate his because when I'm 64, huh?
Birthday greetings, bottle of wine.
Yeah, we got a lot of those things. But anyway, I hope everybody on the chat had a good time, as much fun as we had. We've covered a lot of topics. I tried to throw in things when I could. And press the like button. I never say that enough. And what's the other thing we're supposed to? Oh, subscribe.
Subscribe.
See, I'm not good at this, you can tell.
Oh, boy.
And Sasha's great with the sound checks. Anyway, this is the song we're going out with, Mike. I have to play it. Sorry. Don't Fall for Paul. I wrote it because of you. So we got to play that one. And folks, remember, I have over 40 songs that are true songs about topics that range. And I will say this about Don't Fall for Paul. It's on my 12th. That's the least controversial song on the album, to give you an idea. Wouldn't you agree with that, Mike? It's the least controversial.
I would agree with that, John.
See? So if you want to go where Mike won't dare go because he can't. Only I do it because I'm a piano tuner. I've been tuning pianos for 47 years, 24,000, and I've tuned more celebrities in the last year than I've ever tuned. And if you want to hear what I feel about celebrities, watch my video on that. Remember the video on that one? Was it flattering to celebrities?
No, not at all. In fact, you should probably put it in private mode because you'll lose work.
Yeah, anybody that idolizes celebrities still ought to quit doing it. And again, part of this stuff with the Beatles, you can make an argument they're the most idolized celebrities of all time, right? Wouldn't you say? In many ways.
Yes, because not only are there people idolizing them, but people are idolizing the bands that idolize them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So you have this thread that goes through.
I mean, how many times have you heard Billy Joel say his most influential band, the Beatles?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody. I mean, let's just go down the list. The whole list is Beatles, 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 Beatles. And I was the same way.
Watch any rock and roll documentary on any band, and at some point, they will talk about the Beatles.
Right. Yeah. But I say this, I think you like this, I coined this. We are all Tavistock influence musicians.
Yep. And that's who we studied. We studied the guitar playing of Vic Flick.
Or
Jim Sullivan.
Or Glenn Campbell.
Glenn Campbell. Yeah,
or right. The keyboards of
Nicky Hopkins.
Russell.
Leon Russell.
Leon Russell. The drummer of Hal Blaine. Yeah. It goes go on. Anyway, Mike, happy birthday, everybody. Go to his site, sageacquay.com. Go order his CDs. And if you feel like ordering mine, you know my website. By the way, I'm Lee Nemo on Facebook, so if you want to see me, I'm still on Facebook for one reason, because I still like to put the truth out there, and I'm always restricted, I'm always banned, and all that stuff. But I'm not going to stop. I like to piss them off, you know what I'm saying? Woo! Here's Don't Fall for Paul for the great Mike Williams. Everybody sing along in the chorus.
Way back in '66, I believe Paul died. It was then quite a trick to keep the Beatles alive. Most say William Shepard was his name, a.k.a. Billy Shears. Since Sgt. Pepper, he's had the fame for all these years. John
and Ringo too were forced to carry on. So with Fall they put those clues in so many of their songs. So they kept recording because no one noticed the change. And keeping it a secret, then there was no need to explain. Don't fall for Paul.
He's not
An original Beatle. Don't fall for Paul.
because
The music business is evil. Don't fall for Paul. That's not who you think he is. No, no. No, no. They had to part their ways. It made it easier for them all. The clues kept coming through. They never could forget Paul. Most say William Shepard was his name. So since Sergeant Pepper, he's had the fame. Don't fall for Paul.
he's not
An original Beatle. Don't fall for Paul.
because
The music business is evil. Don't fall for Paul. That's not who you think he is. No, no. No, no. Don't fall for Paul.
he's not
An original Beatle. Don't fall for Paul.
because
The music business is evil. Don't fall for Paul. That's not who you think he is. No, no. No, no. And by the way, fall is spelled F-A-U-L, folks, because that's what a lot of people call them too. Anyway, Mike, have a good night.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Sasha.
Have a great dinner tonight.
Thank you. Yep. Got to go pick up Mom.
Okay. Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye now. Thank you.